My name is Maris Elowin Hale. I'm 35 years old, and on a boring Thursday, the kind where you measure time by the inching of a progress bar, my father texted me to say I wasn't wanted at the table. I was at my desk, half watching a system update crawl from 73% to 74% like it had stage fright, when my phone buzzed. Don't bother coming on Saturday. None of your relatives want you there. He added a laughing emoji, the kind that turns cruelty into a sticker and calls it a joke. I stared at it long enough for the screen to dim and my reflection to look like a stranger. Then I laughed once, quiet and dry. Not because it was funny, because it was exactly on brand. A few months before, I'd made the mistake of trusting them with the only two people whose safety I measure with my breath, my kids, 8 and 5. 3 days, I'd said. A last-minute work trip, I'd said. They'd begged for more time with their grandchildren. They always did. I came home to an empty house, a pile of frozen dinners on the counter, a thermostat blinking error, and an 8-year-old trying not to cry because his little sister was burning up. They had left town for a music festival. 4 days. No call, no neighbor check, not even a sticky note. I called them selfish, told them they'd forfeited the word grandparents. I said the things people only say when they run out of ways to be polite. The one thing I didn't do, the thing that still lives under my ribs, was call the police. I wanted to spare my kids the fluorescent cold of a CPS interview. I wanted to believe shame could metabolize into apology. It didn't. So when my father told me I was uninvited to the big family dinner, my aunt and uncle's welcome home party, after 2 years in Europe, I didn't ask why. I already knew why. You can't unsee someone who leaves children to the mercy of a broken thermostat. You can only rearrange the chairs and try to hide the draft. I opened the family group chat. Photos, restaurant table layouts, a meme about jet lag, all the choreography of people pretending to be a unit. A few scrolls down, I found it. My mother's message from days earlier. Hey everyone, Maris decided not to come, so don't worry about saving her a seat. Let's keep it a positive night. Decided not to come, like I'd bowed out to avoid conflict, like I was the wave, not the wind. No one questioned it, no one called, no one even asked me directly. It was the kind of efficient lie that only works when it flatters everyone who hears it. I didn't defend myself, I didn't send a paragraph threaded with proof, I tapped Leave Group and watched the blue bubble pop like a soap film you decide not to catch. That click woke something up. Here's the thing about being the reliable daughter. You become infrastructure. People don't thank pipes. They notice you only when you burst. Over the years, I had quietly laced my name through their lives, family plan phones, internet I'd set up and never unhooked from my account, RV insurance that rode my discount, a tangle of streaming services auto-paid from my cards because sign-ups are confusing. They had gotten so used to me fixing things that they forgot who owned the wrench. I opened one browser tab, then another, then another. 15 minutes. That's how long it took to cancel every account they'd tucked beneath the floorboards of my patience. No warning, no explanation, just a series of clicks that sounded like a spine straightening. The call started within the hour. I let the first ring out of curiosity, then I let the rest rot on the lock screen. What happened to the internet? Phones aren't working. Maris, did you cancel something? The voicemails came next. My mother's voice, thin, sharp, went on for a full minute about misunderstandings and overreactions. I didn't press play. I didn't need to. I knew the script. It always ended with, "I'm your mother," said like a magic spell. I wasn't interested in magic anymore. I was interested in math. I texted Aunt Liv and Uncle Peter, the ones flying in. Hey, heads up, I won't be at the dinner. I wasn't invited. Hope your trip was wonderful and the night goes smoothly. No venom. Just the truth, placed gently where it would do the most work. An hour later, "What do you mean you weren't invited?" From my uncle. Then Maris? From my cousin Mira. Then a voice memo from my sister that I didn't open, followed by, "Mom said you're avoiding drama." I reread the chat. I'm sorry, I didn't see it before. I didn't send a manifesto back. I didn't ask anyone to take sides or boycott breadsticks. I sent one more message to a smaller group, the relatives who had reached out in good faith. If anyone asks why I'm not there, please don't lie for them. That was it. No hashtags, no fireworks. Just a request laid like a stone on a path I was done clearing for other people's comfort. Behind me, the apartment door opened with the soft complaint of old hinges. Evan stepped in, shook snow off his shoulders, and set a paper bag on the counter. He's the kind of man who buys clementines and remembers which ones the kids call sun buttons. You're smiling like you just filed taxes and won a prize, he said. I canceled their utilities, I said. Phones, internet, RV, the whole digital skeleton. He leaned a hip against the counter and whistled. How's the orchestra taking it? First violins are panicking. Conductor is composing an essay. He grinned, then caught my eyes. You okay? Yes. The ease surprised me. I thought I'd feel sad. I don't. He nodded like a priest who knew the confession before it left my mouth. You drew a line. I thought of Sienna, Evan's ex, who once looked me in the face like she was inspecting a blueprint and said to him in front of me, careful with families who confuse forgiveness with access. Back then I'd cataloged it as pettiness. Now it sounded suspiciously like wisdom you hate agreeing with. That night, after we fed the kids and negotiated a ceasefire over who got the blue bowl, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote 2 sentences I would not deviate from. I won't be at events where my children or I are disrespected. I won't fund the people who do the disrespecting. The calm that followed wasn't loud or cinematic. It was the kind of quiet you feel in your teeth. Saturday came. I didn't dress for any restaurant with low lighting and loud silverware. We made popcorn. The kids chose a movie we'd seen enough times to quote, and Evan, because he's the kind of man who remembers punchlines, missed each one on purpose so they could correct him. For the length of a film, the air in our home conspired to be kind. My phone stayed face down on the end table, vibrating now and then, like a bug that hadn't realized the window was closed. When I finally picked it up near 9, the screen was stippled with messages. Mira, it's chaos. Aunt Liv, I'm so sorry. Sister, you made the right call. I set the phone back down, not because I don't like being vindicated, but because the movie wasn't over yet and I was busy laughing with my children. There would be time to read about the restaurant later. There would be photos, and the photos would hold small truths, the tilt of a chin, a mouth too tight, a chair that should have been mine left empty. But for once, I wanted to finish a story that didn't end in apology. When the kids were finally asleep, 2 small constellations collapsed across a couch. They breathed in that open, heavy way children do when they trust the night to behave. Evan tucked a throw blanket around them and came back to the kitchen where I stood with the fridge open, letting the cool air scrub my face. Do you want to know what's happening over there? He asked. Later, I said. I know how it goes. Someone will tell the truth. Someone will get loud. Half the table will go home early. Mom will call it a misunderstanding. Dad will say I'm unstable. By morning, the group chat will look like a battlefield. Evan examined my face. And you? I'll make pancakes, I said, with too many chocolate chips. He stepped closer, his hand finding the small of my back like it had always belonged there. Proud of you. I believed him, and that felt like a miracle so ordinary you could miss it if you weren't paying attention. Before bed, I did one last thing. I opened a doc and listed every account with my name on it that still fed their lives. A few stragglers blinked back at me. Small subscriptions I'd forgotten. A security system I hadn't realized was still billing through my bank. I scheduled their deaths for Monday morning, 9 a.m., sharp. The calendar ping would be for me alone. I turned off the lights, and for the first time in months, the dark wasn't a place I had to argue with. At 6:58 p.m., the timer on the oven chimed like a polite doorbell. I pulled a tray of cinnamon-dusted popcorn out and shook the pan until the sugared steam rose in a soft cloud. The kids were already lobbying for extra chocolate chips. Because it's not a school night, Mom, and Evan, traitor, raised his hand to second the motion. I surrendered with a theatrical sigh and 2 spoons. We built a den from couch cushions and a quilt the color of lost blueberries. The living room dimmed to that cozy twilight you can only make with lamps, and the movie's opening theme floated in like a memory. Every few minutes, my phone lit the end table like a lighthouse for ships I wasn't inviting home. I let it blink itself tired. Across town at Antonio's, the fake fancy Italian place with the chandeliers that looked like iced spider webs, the host stood straighter than necessary as he led my family to a long table near the back. I could picture it without trying. My parents anchoring the far end like bookends you inherit and don't quite like. My sister performing ease. The cousins filling in the middle, knotted with side conversations. My aunt and uncle smiling politely because politeness is the only thing you can shape when the room is wrong. Let's make it a positive night, my mother said, smoothing the runner like it had offended her. She laughed just enough for the nearest tables to register festive. My father checked his watch like it owed him money. They started strong. Photos were passed around like offerings. European skylines, a dog in a sweater in front of a fountain, an espresso that looked like a miniature dare. Toasts clinked. The server grated parm over plates with the solemnity of a priest. At home, my son leaned into Evan's shoulder and whispered the quote he always waits for. Evan pretended not to remember it until he was corrected twice, then groaned dramatically. While both kids giggled so hard, the quilt slid to the floor. I caught his eye over their heads. He winked. I mouthed sun buttons later, our code for clementines after bedtime. He saluted, a small emoji brought to life. Another buzz from the end table. I didn't look. The popcorn cooled, sugar crisping on kernels like light frost. The movie cast its own weather across the room, warmth that had nothing to do with the thermostat. At Antonio's, the warmth thinned. Someone, Uncle Peter, who'd flown too many hours to stomach a lie, stood with his glass. He's not a speechmaker. That was how the room knew the first truth had found its feet. It's too bad Maris isn't here, he said, clear enough that even the next table stopped pretending not to listen. But after everything that happened, I understand. The air changed registers. My father tacked on a laugh that didn't belong to him. Personal issues, he said to his water, shouldn't ruin a party. My mother clapped her hands once, small and brittle. Let's not dwell, Peter. We're celebrating you. I'm saying this precisely because we're family, he replied, setting the glass down like punctuation. 2 children were left alone for 4 days, one with a fever. That is not a misunderstanding. There is a moment in every story when the fog lifts. It's never as loud as you think. It's a collective blink. It's 6 faces tilting in unison. It's a fork placed softly on china because a hand suddenly can't hold 3 things at once: cutlery, denial, and breath. My cousin Mira, who is gentle in the way that doesn't mean weak, turned to my mother. Is that true? She asked. Not a trap, a request. The kind of request polite families teach you not to make because truth makes more messes than napkins can handle. My mother's eyes glossed. Her mouth trembled on cue. You know how stories grow, she said. Maris is very sensitive. Answer the question, Uncle Peter said, not unkindly. My father's jaw flexed. It's complicated, he snapped. People make mistakes. Not the kind where children are left alone, Mira said, voice suddenly steady as a line drawn with a ruler. Someone, my sister, stood abruptly. This is ridiculous, she said, but her eyes were wet in the ways of someone betrayed by their own ducks. Can we at least not do this in a restaurant? Where would you like to do it? Uncle Peter asked, because no one picked up the phone when it mattered. My mother tried a different door. Maris decided not to come tonight, she said, louder, for the minutes. She told everyone it was to avoid drama. Actually, Mira interrupted, strength surprising even herself, she told us she wasn't invited. The server arrived with a peppermill the size of a bat and froze mid-service, eyes flicking from face to face. Somewhere near the bar, a cocktail shaker miscounted its rhythm. At home, the villain on the screen met his first consequence. The kids cheered like justice had been invented on our couch. I smiled into the bowl of popcorn rubble and, only then, picked up my phone. Mira, Aunt Elle just asked if you really weren't invited. I said yes. Aunt Liv, your mother told the table you bowed out. Peter called her on it. Sister, you made the right call to stay away. I typed, thank you, and set the phone down. My daughter pressed her sticky hand into mine and whispered, Is Grandma coming next week? The question came like a bird bumping a window. No, baby, I said softly. They live far away now. She nodded, satisfied, already chasing the next scene. Back at Antonio's, the table had become a geography lesson. Fault lines, aftershocks. A cousin I never see mad asked, plain as an accountant, Did you really leave them? Without checking? Without food? My father pushed back his chair, the scrape deliberate. Enough, he said. We won't be shamed by children. You left children, Uncle Peter said. If shame belongs anywhere, it belongs there. My mother's voice cracked open. We didn't plan to be gone that long. The festival ran over. The traffic was terrible. The thermostat, another cousin repeated, like tasting something and finding it spoiled. You're citing the thermostat? My sister made a small sound, sat down hard, and covered her face with both hands. The clatter of a fork drawn back a curtain no one wanted to look behind. Someone stood. Someone else stood with them. It was not dramatic. It was a quiet procession of people choosing not to spend another minute pretending gravity was optional. By dessert, half the table had gone home. The ones who stayed to be polite to the travelers. Politeness is sometimes the last lifeboat off a sinking night. My parents, who loved to hold court, found themselves with no subjects. Their laughter returned to them unused. The group chat, I'm told, fractured like tempered glass. One by one, the little gray left the conversation banners bloomed. It's the most honest punctuation a family can put on a lie. At home, we tucked the kids in. Evan did the character voices for the bedtime book until he laughed himself off script. When the light finally clicked off, the room settled into that plush quiet reserved for houses where the day has performed its duty and can go lie down. "Do you want the play-by-play?" he asked when we met again in the kitchen, 2 glasses of water between us like witnesses. "Give me the headlines," I said. He lifted his phone. Uncle Peter spoke. Mira pressed. Your mom cried. Your dad bristled. People left early. Group chat is a ghost town. He skimmed. Liv says she's bringing the truth as a hostess gift to every conversation from now on. I huffed a laugh I didn't have to apologize for. Sounds accurate. He studied me. Any urge to fix it? The old reflex twitched and died in my chest. No, I said. I think I'm done mortgaging our peace for their seating charts. He nodded, slow, proud. Good. I thought of Sienna, uninvited ghost that she is, and her warning about families who turn forgiveness into a swipe card. I thought of how close Evan had once come, months ago, to calling her when his own family history was a loud room he didn't know how to leave. He hadn't called. He'd sat on the floor with me and the kids and built a castle out of cardboard and tape and named it ours. That's the whole story, really. You can spend your life begging for a chair at someone else's table, or you can build your own and feed your people first. I picked up my phone one last time. A new message from Mira had landed. Mira, Mom says you're punishing them. I told her you're protecting you. I'm with you. Thank you, I wrote back, then added. Please don't argue. Choose peace. Come here next weekend. We'll make dinner. The 3 dots flickered, then, yes. A single, small promise that felt bigger than any chandelier. I rinsed the popcorn pan. The sugared rim hissed when it met the hot water. Evan dried the bowls because he is the kind of man who finishes small kindnesses. When we turned off the kitchen light, the apartment fell into a darkness that felt earned. In the morning, I'd wake up, make pancakes with too many chocolate chips, and draft the emails that would cut the last chords. Official notices, CC'd to companies, and carbon copied straight through the middle of an old story. But for now, there was only the clean quiet after truth, and the soft sound of my children sleeping in a home where no one mistook them for an inconvenience. For the first time in years, Monday felt like just Monday. The house smelled like coffee instead of adrenaline. No voicemails waiting, no guilt-drenched texts dressed as concern, just air. By noon, though, the silence had shape, a quiet that felt watched. It started with Lena, my cousin, the one who always hears things first. She called while I was folding laundry. Hey, Maris, she said carefully. I just wanted to check in. I heard some stuff. That tone, the kind people use when they're stepping around shards of family glass. What kind of stuff? I asked. Your mom's been telling everyone you're angry, that you overreacted, that Evan's the one whispering in your ear. Ah, I said, the greatest hits album. Lena sighed. That's not all. There's a rumor about a watch, engraved, with your initials. I froze. I hadn't mentioned that watch to anyone. Where did you hear that? My friend bought it on Facebook Marketplace, she said, voice lowering. Seller looked familiar. I checked the photo. Maris, it's your brother. The world narrowed to the sound of laundry tumbling. That engraved watch had been the gift meant for him, before everything. The one I'd hidden in the glove compartment of my car the week before Christmas. He broke into my car, I said. Evan looked up from his laptop across the room. Who did? I ended the call, my throat suddenly dry. My brother. He sold the watch. He stood slowly, calm in the way people are when they're angrier than they look. You want me to handle it? No, I said, grabbing my phone. This one's mine. I dialed. He picked up on the 3rd ring, his voice lazy, as if we were talking about the weather. Hey, sis. You stole from me. He exhaled into the line. It was just sitting there. You weren't going to give it to me anyway. My pulse steadied. You don't get to decide that. He laughed, a short, hollow sound. You're overreacting, like always. You left 2 children alone for 4 days, I said evenly. Trust me, I'm not the one with an overreaction problem. A pause. Then, colder. You think you're better than us now? You think money makes you— The difference, I interrupted, is that now I know exactly who you are. Click, block, silence. It didn't hurt, it just ended. That night, I sat at the kitchen table again, spreadsheets open, columns of numbers turning into an autobiography of neglect. 5 years of payments, gifts, bailouts, $47,000. The price of my silence. Evan came over, coffee mug in hand. Budget meeting? Exorcism, I said. He read over my shoulder, eyebrows raising. That's a house down payment. Or a future, I said. We started redirecting the totals. Mortgage fund, college savings, a vacation we'd always postponed. Every dollar I'd spent on apology was now a brick in our piece. When we finished, I leaned back, exhausted but lighter. This feels like stealing from them, I said quietly. Evan smirked. Maybe it's just finally paying yourself back. I smiled. You sound like your ex. He laughed. Which one? The one who told you families like mine turn guilt into gravity. His eyes softened. Sienna was right about that. Wrong about me, though. How so? She said I liked rescuing people, but you don't need rescuing. Good, I said. I'm not in the market. We clinked mugs like it was champagne. 3 days later, my father emailed. Subject, a favor. I read the first line. Your mother's worried. We're short on rent. Could you help just this once? Then I closed it. Evan saw the glow of the screen. You okay? Yeah, I said. I just need to make sure I reply like a person who means what she says. He nodded. You want me to draft something? No, I need to write this one myself. I waited 3 days. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. When I finally answered, the message was short. Dad, I won't be covering rent anymore. I need to prioritize my own family. I hope things work out for you. I pressed send and felt the kind of finality that doesn't echo. It just stays quiet. 2 days later, an unknown number called. It was Lena again. Your mom's telling people you've gone cold, she said, that Evan poisoned you against everyone. I exhaled through my nose. She's recycling her stories now. She's also saying you're punishing them financially. I looked out the window at my kids building a fort in the yard. I'm not punishing them. I'm just done financing my own mistreatment. Lena was silent a moment, then said softly, I believe you. Most of us do now. After we hung up, Evan came behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. Still standing, he whispered. Still standing, I said. We stayed that way for a while, watching the last light fade off the backyard fence. Then he said what we were both thinking. They won't stop, will they? No, I said. Not until they realize there's nothing left to take. He kissed my shoulder. Then let's make sure there isn't. The next morning, we sat down together and wrote the final emails. Effective immediately, please remove my name from all accounts and services associated with you. This includes phone plans, insurance policies, and subscriptions. I will no longer be financially or legally responsible for any services connected to your address. We CC'd both of my parents. We CC'd the companies. We hit send together. It felt surgical, clean. Later that night, Evan leaned against the counter, watching me wash dishes. So, he said, how does it feel? I smiled at the window's reflection, like I finally changed the locks on a story I didn't write. He grinned. Now that's a quote. The phone buzzed again, another unknown number. I didn't even glance at it. Instead, I turned to him and said, What do you want for dinner tomorrow? He smiled. Something ordinary. Perfect, I said. Ordinary sounds extraordinary. We didn't know it yet, but that was the night the war changed shape, because when words failed them, my parents went back to the only weapon they'd ever trusted, paper. The first letter came on a Thursday, a plain white envelope slipped through the slot like a ghost trying to get in. I recognized the handwriting instantly, my mother's perfect cursive, the kind she used for Christmas cards and lies. Evan found it before I did. He placed it on the counter like it might be ticking. You going to open it? He asked. Not yet, I said. Let her words sit in quarantine for a bit. It sat there for 2 days. Every time I walked past, it seemed to stare back, smug and heavy. When I finally opened it, the scent hit first. Faded perfume, the same kind she'd wear when she wanted to remind people she was delicate. The letter started like a lullaby. Maris, I still remember the day you got lost in the mall when you were 7. I searched for hours. I thought I'd never find you. When I finally did, I promised I'd never let you out of my sight again. I almost smiled. Then came the pivot. That's why it hurts so much to see what you've become. You used to be kind. You used to forgive. Now you've let other people harden your heart. We're your parents, Maris. That still means something. I stopped reading because I knew how it would end, with Bible verses about grace, then blame dressed as love. When Evan came home, he saw the letter open beside my untouched tea. Let me guess, he said. Starts with memory, ends with manipulation? Word for word, I said. Burn it, he said simply. So we did. We stood over the sink and watched the flame eat the paper from the bottom up, curling her handwriting into smoke. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt necessary. But the letters kept coming. Every few days, another envelope. Some in her script, some in my father's angry scrawl. One said, "You've made your point." Another said, "You're tearing the family apart." One was just a list of their monthly bills, highlighted with the note, "We could use some help, just until things smooth out." I tore them all up. If they wanted to rebuild their lives, they could do it without my foundation. Then, one afternoon, a new kind of message arrived. An email from their landlord. "Dear Ms. Hale," it began, "your parents told me you manage their payments. Rent has been overdue since last month. How would you like to handle it?" My stomach dropped. Evan was beside me within seconds. "Let me see." I handed him the phone. He read silently, jaw tightening. "They gave him your contact information," he said slowly. "They're trying to drag me back through paperwork," I said. He looked at me. "What are you going to do?" I took a deep breath, opened a reply, and typed, "Hello. I am not financially or legally responsible for this account. I have not managed any payments since January. Please remove my contact information from all future correspondence. Best, Maris Hale." Send. A minute later, a short response. "Understood. Thank you for clarifying." Evan exhaled. "That's it?" "That's it," I said. "They just lost their last bridge." That night, I sat in the dark living room, letting the quiet fill the corners. The kids were asleep. Evan was upstairs reading, and I realized I didn't feel guilt anymore, only distance, the kind that feels like oxygen after years underwater. When Evan came down, I told him what I'd been thinking. "I want to move," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Move?" "Out of state. Start over somewhere they can't reach. I'm tired of being a 20-minute drive from people who only remember I exist when they need something." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "I've been waiting for you to say that." We spent the next week scrolling listings at midnight. Small towns, quiet streets, big yards, schools with good reviews, and photos of kids with messy hair and smiles that didn't look forced. By early spring, we'd found it. A home 2 states away, surrounded by pine trees and a fence the color of old honey. We didn't tell anyone, not a soul. We packed slowly, carefully, like spies leaving no trace. Every night after the kids were asleep, we boxed up another piece of the old life. The noise, the guilt, the constant buzz of their demands, gone, one drawer at a time. By June, we were gone. No announcement, no goodbyes, no forwarding address. The moving truck pulled away just as the morning sun broke through the clouds. Evan squeezed my hand on the drive out of town. "You okay?" I looked in the rearview mirror at the skyline shrinking behind us. "For the first time," I said, "yes." The new house smelled of pine and fresh paint. The kids ran through the empty rooms, their laughter echoing like a blessing. That night, we ate pizza on the floor, surrounded by boxes labeled "Kitchen" and "New Start" in black marker. We fell asleep under blankets instead of regret. 3 weeks later, a package showed up. No return address, just a neat white box taped shut. Inside was a photo album, one of the old family ones. I flipped it open and felt my throat tighten. Every photo of me had been left untouched. Every photo of Evan had been scribbled over in black marker. In the later pages, the kids' faces were blotted out too. At the end, a note. "You used to belong to us. Now you belong to her." I stared at it for a long time. Then I carried it outside, dropped it in the trash, and closed the lid. When I came back in, Evan was standing at the counter, arms crossed. "What was it?" "Just a ghost," I said. "One that doesn't live here anymore." He nodded. "Good." We poured 2 glasses of wine, clinked them softly, and let the sound of crickets fill the silence that used to belong to chaos. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the boxes we hadn't unpacked yet. The air was still, peaceful, almost reverent. I didn't check the mail. I didn't need to. Because whatever my parents sent next, letters, guilt, or silence, It would all land at the wrong address. By September, life had grown quiet in the kind of way that doesn't feel empty, just earned. Mornings came slower now. I made coffee while the kids packed their lunches, the sound of cereal clinking against bowls instead of tension humming through the house. The forest behind our fence had started to turn gold. Sometimes I'd catch myself just standing at the window, watching sunlight thread through the branches and thinking, so this is what peace sounds like. Then one morning my inbox pinged. Subject, Dad's sick. No greeting, no explanation, just 2 words that smelled like bait. I stared at it until the steam from my coffee disappeared. Then I hit delete. For the rest of the morning, I waited for the old reflex, guilt, to crawl back up my throat. It never did. That afternoon, Evan loaded the car with a picnic blanket and sandwiches, and we drove to the coast. The kids ran barefoot along the shoreline, chasing waves that kept folding themselves into laughter. Evan stretched out beside me on the blanket, one hand shielding his eyes from the sun. "You're quiet," he said. "I got an email from my brother," I said. "Dad's supposedly sick." He nodded slowly, not asking what I'd done. "And?" "I deleted it." He smiled faintly. "Good." I leaned my head on his shoulder. It didn't even hurt this time. The wind moved through the reeds, carrying away whatever that sentence used to mean. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Then he said, "I think that's how you know it's really over." We drove home that evening with salt in our hair and sand in our shoes. The kids fell asleep in the back seat, mouths open, dreaming easy. Later that week, a different kind of knock came. Heavy, slow, deliberate. The kind that doesn't belong to neighbors. I opened the door, and for a second I didn't recognize the man standing there. My father looked smaller. His leather jacket hung on him like someone else's skin. His eyes were sunken, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. He cleared his throat. "I'm not here to argue." I didn't move. "What are you here for?" He glanced past me, as if expecting to see a welcome mat that didn't exist. "Your mother left me," he said finally. "Took what money we had, went to Florida, staying with her sister." He half laughed, but it broke halfway out. "Guess she decided I wasn't worth the trouble." I didn't speak. I didn't invite him in, because that was what he was waiting for, a crack, an opening, a repeat of the old script. He looked down at the porch boards. "I'm not asking for money or help. I just thought you should know." For the first time, I saw it clearly. He wasn't there because he missed me. He was there because he had no one left. I took a slow breath. "I hope you get your life together," I said. Then I closed the door. No shouting, no tears, just the quiet click of a lock that finally meant something. Through the peephole, I watched him linger for a few seconds, staring at the closed door like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Then he turned and walked away, shoulders folded in on themselves. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I just stood there, my hand still on the door, realizing this was what freedom looked like. Not victory, just absence. Evan came down the stairs. "Who was it?" "My dad," I said. "He's gone." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded, understanding, without needing to ask. "Want to finish the faucet?" he asked gently. I smiled. "Yeah." We spent the rest of the afternoon fixing small things, the kind of repairs that used to feel like survival and now felt like living. The kids built a cardboard fort in the yard and shouted for me to come help. When I stepped outside, the air was thick with late summer light. "Higher, Mom!" they yelled. I picked up another box, added it to their fortress, and said, "Stronger too." That night, the house hummed with laughter, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I'd left a family behind. I'd just stopped pretending one existed. 1 year later, I didn't expect there would be a final chapter, but life has a way of mailing you closure in plain brown boxes. A call came from a law firm in another state. They were handling probate documents. My father, they said, had died of a stroke in a motel outside of Tulsa. Apparently, he'd been moving from couch to couch after my mother left. No property, no savings, just a few personal effects and a manila envelope with my name on it. They offered to send the box. I said yes. It arrived a week later, taped and battered, smelling faintly of old cigarette smoke. Inside were a few shirts, a broken wristwatch, and that envelope. I opened it expecting excuses, manipulation, or one last attempt to rewrite the story. But it wasn't that. It was a page and a half of something I never thought I'd see. Truth. He admitted it. All of it. That leaving my kids alone was wrong. That what they did to me was worse. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't even pretend to deserve it. He just wrote, "I finally see it. You were right to walk away." I sat there at the kitchen table, reading those words under the same lamp where I'd read his first text months before. Evan came up behind me, resting his hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. He finally told the truth. I folded the letter, struck a match, and set the edge alight, watched the paper curl into itself until it was nothing but ash. Not out of anger, out of completion, because that was all it ever needed to be, a goodbye. As the smoke thinned, I opened the window and let it drift out into the cold night air. Maybe somewhere it found him. Maybe not. Either way, I was done carrying the story. Evan touched my hand. "You okay?" I smiled. Better than okay. Free. Outside, the kids' laughter echoed from their cardboard fortress, now painted bright blue, still standing tall in the yard. And I realized peace doesn't come when you get everything back. It comes when you stop giving everything away. I looked at Evan, the man who stayed, the home we built, the silence that finally felt holy. I had spent years trying to earn a seat at a table that was never meant for me. Now I had my own table, and every chair was filled with love.